Let's quickly talk about Tesla autonomous vehicles. We finally saw the launch of Robotaxi in Austin, Texas. The stock ran up 8 to 9%, I think, on the day. What were your guys' initial reactions of the official beta Tesla launch?
Evan, you want to go first?
Sure. I will go first on this one. I think that for some reason, well, I guess for good reason, Waymo and Tesla are against each other. And, I think that we're still at the phase of that where both, it's still good for one doing good and the other doing well, So I think that this was a big moment. The goalpost always gets moved, but this is something that's been promised for a really long time. And you're really starting to see it. There are Teslas being driven on the road with no one in the driver's seat. Full stop, end of story. I feel like if anyone doesn't go to San Francisco or maybe Austin now, you can drive in cars, no one in the driver's seat. In San Francisco, it felt like every 1 in 4, 1 in 5 cars was either a Waymo, a Zoox, or a Tesla, which is going in the area. So that type of thing is really here now, and it feels like a couple companies are close. So I think that this was a moment for Tesla. You're hoping that it can scale pretty quickly, a lot quicker than Waymo is going. You're also hoping that the cost advantage ends up being pretty valuable. But I think that this event is bullish for mobility in general, and there's a large industry that's here of transportation that is clearly being shaken up right now, both in the vehicles themselves, which is a whole different conversation, but in just driving. And I feel like that unlocks a lot of potential. So I'm saying a lot of words here. The underlying point is this was a big moment. Cars that drive themselves with no one in the driver's seat are here. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 big hiccups, but this isn't a decade type timeline. I feel like this is a years type timeline, and Tesla and Waymo are the people that are competing for it. So I think it's bullish for both of them.
Brad, is
I
Uber
think-
dead?
Sorry, what?
I said, is Uber dead?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Why not? Hope. But I mean, 10, 15 cars. There's a person in the passenger seat. There's some mysterious button that they have their finger on for most of the ride. I have no idea what it is. I can only speculate. Again, we talked about last week, seeing anecdotes about them making mistakes and anecdotes about them being perfect. So I don't know. I don't see this as some grand event and launch for Tesla. I kind of see this as a extremely highly publicized baby step in that direction of full autonomy, and they'll get there, I think. But I think a lot of us underrate how effective Waymo has been in navigating regulatory climates that are extremely different across many cities, and figuring it. Even in New York, they're now testing with the driver in the seat because they have to. But everyone's going to have to start testing with the driver in the seat. And I just think Tesla will get there. I think that's pretty clear. But so, and I'll switch to Uber, talking about Uber in a second, but I don't think that they have some kind of autonomous vehicle monopoly that controls 80% of the market and have millions of cars on the road in a year or two or anything like that. And I think it's going to be, I do think it's going to be a very, very slow ramp and a city by city expansion. And I mean, let's see how long it takes them to actually roll out to Austin beyond offering rides to a few influencers in 10 cars. So I'd love to see that happen and them actually fully operating in a city like Waymo's doing across the country. But I mean, in my opinion, I mean, you guys all saw, or I'm sure a lot of people saw Uber respond very positively to how the launch has gone so far. And that has been because of some of the perceived bugs in some of these rides and getting off in the wrong lane and things like that. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of the streaming videos on social media about it making mistakes, and all of them make mistakes. Every single one of them make mistakes, but the frequency probably needs to get a bit better. And I've been saying for a long time, Uber is the only company not the only company. Uber is the most impactful company when it comes to making sure there's a butt in the seat for these cars as frequently as humanly possible or machinely possible, I guess. And I mean, their massive two-sided network effect is why these cars won't be cash incinerators in perpetuity forever. And I mean, When you pair that with the fact that they're going to be housing all of these cars in warehouses that need a ton of compute and a ton of technology and a ton of talent to be able to maintain these fleets, pairing that with now they're getting into data tagging and categorizing, where they're going to help companies train their own models with this mountain of driver data that Uber's collected over its entire existence, while leading market share across the entire world. I don't know. I think Tesla's going to succeed in AV. I think Uber is going to succeed in AV. I think Waymo is going to succeed in AV. I think this massive market to think is going to have one or two winners is probably not, certainly not my base case. And I don't think the base case for a lot of people. I mean, you've got May Mobility, Zoox, Volkswagen, Mobileye, AV Ride, all launching in the next 18 months in cities across the United States. So they're all coming. Fragmentation drives a need to make sure, again, there's a butt in the seat more frequently than there would be on your own. And Uber is the company that does that. I mean, Uber is the ubiquitous verb in transportation. Uber is who represents all of the consumers requesting rides. And I think that the threat to that would be, well, what if Waymo just builds their own app and does their own thing? But with how aggressively sharp the impact Uber had on Waymo's Austin utilization rates and the success they're having in that market was, now they're rolling out exclusively in Atlanta. Yes. I just see all the data, and that's not new, by the way. That headline cycled all throughout social media all day long. That was announced in September. It just launched today. But everything we're seeing is pointing to Uber being the company that can make sure there are people in seats more frequently, and that these cars don't burn money forever, because they are very expensive. They are more expensive than what Tesla has right now. I mean, but then you hear things about Waymo's rolling out a new generation of hardware at 50% of the cost. And then there's another generation coming after that with more cost reductions. So I really think Tesla's massive cost advantage, which is super valuable and super important, and somewhat defensible, may not be somewhat defensible, but maybe not permanent, just because I do think that's a byproduct of this company having the best electric vehicle manufacturing footprint in the country and being able to use that to build their Robotaxi fleet. And all these other companies are really starting from scratch and building out massive fixed costs to scale before the revenue hits. So I mean, cost will not scale forever. Revenue will start to flow in. The hardware will get cheaper. Things like synthetic data generation that NVIDIA is doing, which really is just a fancy way of saying, we use this data point, we generate 1 million data points that are very similar to it, and we let the model learn from all of them instead of this one data point, because collecting physical data is extremely expensive. I just think there's a lot more cost disinflation coming for the entire industry, which is going to breed competition, which is going to make people figure out how to, going back to the same idea I've been talking about this entire spiel, make sure that there's a maximum instance of people being in those cars and paying me money for that expensive hardware.
Yeah, going back to the actual Tesla event, I just thought I was surprised by the market reaction, because we saw, like, we knew it was going to happen on the 22nd, especially whenever all those influencers got their, invites to the event. So people were pretty set on them actually launching on the 22nd. Then as it was happening, I didn't know what we received new that got people excited versus what we actually saw. So 9% move on this company that already holds up nearly a 200x PE was surprising to me. That being said, I'm super bullish on the actual technology and like what it means for humanity in general. As a singular investment, I was surprised that the 9% move ended up happening. Like, I don't know. I don't know if we end up seeing the $900 billion of revenue in autonomous driving by 2029, like Kathy Wood assumes.
I think you were talking there, like
Kathy Wood's multi-year forecast with a large grain of salt.
First of all,
like you're implying, Tanner, like you're already implying. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ev.
Kathy bought into that Circle IPO. She's doing nice well there. So let's
killing it there. Yeah, got to give credit where credit's due. She bought that, and now she's selling it near the top. And well, I mean, who knows? Might not be the top, but she's done well.
For the sake of market health, hopefully near the top.
Yeah. That's a very interesting name.
A little bit.
Holy.
The 9% move. One thing I would say is look left a little bit. I mean, it's not like Tesla is breaking out to new all-time highs at a crazy point. But you know, Tesla isn't a stock that's trading off of fundamentals right now. So if you can get a headline in an area that the market believes in, that it takes as meaningful, they'll speculate. So I think what this also tells you is just like in the HIMSS news that the market is really focused on GLP-1s right now, I think that it will move in order like a lot more off of that than maybe it should. I think the market is also really focused on AI, robots, and everything like that, and full self-driving autonomy is probably going to be one of the big first real life use cases everybody sees of that. So I think the market is in a very willing place to speculate on that theme, which probably end up being good for Waymo and Uber.
And there's one
hopefully.
company that's built a large, profitable electric vehicle business in the United States, and that is Tesla. So giving them the benefit of the doubt makes some sense to me. And while I would love to see more points on the board to start giving them that benefit of the doubt, I completely understand why people are thinking to themselves, Elon will figure it out. Just like I think to myself when TikTok was going to kill Meta, Zuck will figure it out. Like these are brilliant, talented, somewhat crazy, polarizing founders, and they get shit done. And I think they never get shit, or Elon doesn't really get shit done on the timeline that he says he's going to, but he gets it done. So people thinking that trend is going to continue is not based on nothing. It's based on historical trends and him being able to get it done in the past. So I do get it. Even though I'm a little skeptical of timeline and how quickly this proliferates, thinking that they won't figure it out and won't be one of the players, I think is probably not a good bet.
As the technology becomes more equal, as we get further from the bleeding edge, and now it's just normal for self-driving cars, does the market get more fragmented? Do we have a bunch of people making this stuff, and you're not going to have 25 apps that you go in and use? And do we kind of get back to exactly where we're at right now with all cars now using the Uber network, but now it's just a much higher margin business because there's no driver? Does it just go full circle at that point?
I think
that's
so.
that's what Uber bulls believe, right? Are people going to download 10 different apps? Is Volkswagen going to have their own for this new AV that they just announced? No, they're going to partner with Uber, and Waymo is partnering more with Uber, and
they'll partner with the company that's giving them perks for ordering for getting groceries and having a package delivered and having dinner delivered tonight, so that they can get the same loyalty points and perks when they're getting their mobility rides. I mean, Uber One is an extremely sticky subscription, and they're going to want to be rewarded for their loyalty, and so using many apps kind of interrupts that.
Speaking of which, I like Uber. I also hate Uber for that same reason. To cancel Uber One is the most annoying process. I think I still have it. I don't even want it. But anytime that the payment comes out is whenever you're reminded that you have that subscription. And then if you try to go and cancel it during that time, it says you have to wait 48 hours or you can call to our customer service thing. In 48 hours, I'm not going to remember about a $5 subscription, so I don't care to cancel it. But it's always that 48 hours, and they know that's when people want to cancel it. And they've gotten me like 5 months in a row. I don't even use Uber right now.
I think there are pending lawsuits for that very issue for Uber, and I think there is probably a slap on the wrist coming, and you need to change this a little bit. I think you're right.
I actually get a lot of value out of Uber One. If I've been told from people who work at Uber that if you use it more than 2 times a month, and like actual friends, so not like salesperson or whatever, but if you use it more than 2-3 times a month, it tends to pay for itself.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
some
where
of the
about
things,
the bar is.
Some of the things they're doing also with some of the commute products they just rolled out, where, hey, if you commit to 10 plus rides a month, we'll give you discounts, and you can pick your set destination, and we'll pick you up there between this time and this time. And just, I mean, they're creating daily use and habits and loyalty. And I really think that a product without a driver in the seat doesn't really change that formula all that much, unless there is one app with all of the AVs and that belongs to Waymo or Tesla. And then in that situation, Uber's kind of SOL, I think, which is, I don't think is likely, but just it's always possible.
One thing that I think is, we'll look back on this in the next couple of years, that I think is pretty clear right now, is the car market, which is a very large industry, one that hasn't changed much. And honestly, probably the transportation industry in general, but whatever, which has been stagnant and maybe, had incremental growth forever, is going through a really big change right now. You could argue EVs is it or whatever, but I think this autonomous aspect of it is something that is a step change, is very interesting. When you look in history in these type of step changes, the companies that were big before aren't always the companies that are big after it. I think Uber's focus on transportation and becoming the experts in that space will end up being good in this area. But I think the opportunity is, Ford, GM, Toyota, like there is room for just people who can produce, manufacture at a really high level, like Toyota Pro Systems, TPS is something, if you go to business school, everyone's learned about it. So there are definitely a space for these companies, but I think that it doesn't feel like something that's decades away. It feels like this decade there's going to be a lot of changes coming in that area. And I just think there's space for all these companies. Amazon's doing stuff with Zoox. There's going to be some partnerships and consolidations coming out of this, but yeah,
so right.
Yeah,
I think you're so right that there are disruptor software companies and legacy OEM hardware company partnerships coming. Like that makes way too much sense not to be happening. With you guys
and
have
the OEMs better act quick.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Brad, the OEMs better act quick, or else they're going to be the ones getting acquired, not the ones doing the acquiring.
Fair point. Everyone better be acting quickly right now. I mean, if you're not acting with a fire lit on your ass, you are not acting with the appropriate sense of urgency.
Is Uber not too far off and at a too far of a market cap size to be thinking, hey, do we buy one of these OEMs? I'm not saying they go down that route, but it's one software company in the transportation space that could be thinking of buying one of these large OEMs.
So much, but I don't want to rule it out because it doesn't sound that who knows, it's probably not super likely, but it's possible. But man, I would hate that so much if they added those asset about as asset heavy as you can get, so much debt. Like, oh, that would make all the things that I love about Uber's business model immediately not true anymore. But yeah, I do think things like that are going to happen.